feel weird not doing the regular kind of car cam every time I do these little full day meetings. But plan for today, let me actually pull up the macros because I don't necessarily have like a full meal plan. Like that's not the approach I usually do. I'm not sitting here like, okay, first meal, 2 packs of oats, 8 ounces of chicken, this many ounces or whatever. Like that's kind of classic bodybuilder lingo. Because I mean, the older approach with dieting was you just had a coach tell you a meal plan, and then you weren't worried about how many calories of chicken was I eating. You're worried about, okay, I want to make sure I eat 8 ounces with this meal because that's the program. But it's so confined. You're so limited. So that's where there's kind of an in between. Because I like the idea of the flexible dieting. Use eat specific foods at specific times based on like how many calories they do have or whatever else. But there are certain constraints that you still have to follow because I mean, obviously, we would all love going to the cupboard, going to the kitchen whenever you want, eat whatever you want, still hit your dieting goals. Slam a pint of Ben and Jerry's, you're still burning fat, right? That'd be awesome. I would love it. Not exactly the case. So, if I can't eat anything, I have to eat only a certain amount per day. Then, what that leads me to believe is I want to make sure that throughout the course of the day, I'm eating at a steady rate and I'm eating foods that are going to make me feel full. If I eat this little bowl of oatmeal and then I felt hungry 30 minutes later, what was the point, right? I just kind of wasted the 60 grams of carbs that are in this because they're not really satiating me. I mean, I've only got, let me pull up the amounts again. I just dropped it a little bit too because I was getting kind of stuck at about 249. To do, yeah, so 250 grams of protein, 70 of fat, and 300 of carbs. Right, that's my limit. So that's what I'm aiming for the whole day. And I didn't just look that up. Like that's written, right? I mean, it says it right there. You see, right? You plug in whatever amounts you want, and any macro tracking app is the same shit. I think that MyFitnessPal gets a little complicated, so I like one of the simpler ones. But so that's what I have to work with. Or actually, I had 250 written there. I got to change it to 300. But so that's my limit. So I've got from now 11:30 because I did morning cardio, kind of waited a little bit. I usually wait until around noonish to have my first meal. But I've got from now until when I go to bed, probably about 11:30. So that's 12 hours to eat 2,830 calories. So that would mean that per hour, right, I should only eat 1/12 of that, or at least around that rate, because if it was 4 o'clock and I already ate 2,500 calories, I'm screwed. Because sure, I could say, oh, well, I haven't gone over my calorie limit yet, but what am I supposed to do? Eat only 300 calories for the rest of the night and then pop a squat and go to sleep? It's just not going to fucking happen. So that's where, if you're halfway through your time period of the day that you're eating, you shouldn't be more than halfway through all of your calories. I don't mind even being a little bit behind because I'd rather leave more calories towards the end of the day so I can go to bed with a full stomach. It just makes sleeping feel a lot easier. I mean, if you've ever tried to go to bed hungry, no fun. But this is technically I'm already kind of lying. I missed the little like 42 grams of protein shake I had. So technically I'm not, breakfast wasn't only this oatmeal. So far that one protein shake along with this pack of oatmeal puts me at 72 grams of carbs. I can just show you 72 grams of carbs. I think that's what is that, 9 grams of fat and then 42 grams of protein. Exactly. So this will be breakfast in a sense. And when I'm dieting down, I'm not going to have 6 meals. I don't want to have just 6 real teensy kind of meals. It just doesn't make as much sense for me. So whatever I eat next in 2.5-ish hours, that'll be essentially the pre-workout meal. So I might make that one a little more carb heavy, and then go work out, come back, eat a bigger meal post workout, and then probably just have one more before bed. Do kind of a breakfast, lunch, dinner, plus a second lunch kind of situation. So that's the plan. I'm gonna slam this. It'll probably take me about 3 seconds. I'll try to enjoy it. And then we can just cut to whatever the next meal ends up being. All right. I think the desk will be kind of a, if it's not broken, don't fix it kind of situation. But meal two, adding up to about, wait, no. Yeah, 55 grams of carbs from the rice. And it's like a microwavable, Ben's, whatever. The only reason I used one of those that I had sitting in the cupboard was because I ran out of my plain minute rice. That would have probably blended a little bit better here. 8 ounces of turkey breast coming off of a real kind of big Kirkland just turkey breast chunk. Like I think the whole thing's like 5 pounds from Costco. 2 servings of fat-free cheese, adding up to 4 grams of carbs and 18 grams of protein, which, you know, it's a dairy product, so I'm still going to count that as a full 18. But I mean, I want most of my protein coming from real direct protein sources. And the more you kind of have to like filter out and get the whey and whatever else to make this kind of, well, fat-free cheese, it's, you know, those two things are usually contradictory. You do end up kind of losing all sorts of essential amino acids. So I'll still count it, but only because it's like a dairy product. Like when I see protein in, I mean, hell, there's like some protein in this rice. Probably said like 2 grams of protein per serving. I'm not going to count that. And that's, you know, you can count it if you would like, but if my goal is 250 grams of protein for the whole day, I want all those 250 grams, or at least most of them, to be coming from real quality, complete protein sources. And the protein in the rice, I mean, it's not hitting every amino acid array, and that's not something I'm just bro sciencing. You know, look up like a protein quality chart or like amino acid array, whatever, and it's basically a grading scale on like how well you can digest, how many actual like amino acids are present, and what kind of foods do you think are the top end, you know, 90 to 100 grade on that scale, or even like 85 to 100, right? And I think we all know this: chicken, rice, steak, milks, you know, more conventional protein sources. And then, you know, that kind of just leads me into like how I'm sort of changing my approach with the dieting in general, because, you know, it's really like the simpler the better. You know, like I'm not trying to slam as many 0 carb buns and like tortillas as I might have used to, just because, you know, 55 grams of just plain rice is gonna kind of fill me up as much as I would expect. And trying to get around it, at least with a lot of the fat-free buns, if you ever get into that, or the carb-free buns, they they end up making you a little bit bloated and like gassy if you eat too many of them. So it's kind of like too much of a good thing isn't, you know, it's no good anymore. But this will put me at, well, actually, let me pull up my chart. 1,244 calories, and this will be the pre-workout meal. So I won't eat again until post-workout. And that's actually not true, because I had 4 little beef sticks that I had sitting in the cupboard in between the oatmeal meal and this one. So that's an extra 12 grams of protein and, or no, an extra 12 grams of fats and 16 grams of protein. So that puts me at these values here, if it'll focus, right? And then every time I'm using this app specifically, I end up just clicking right here and then entering these macro values directly. I don't know, that's quicker for me. And for some guys, they like to click on the specific food. Like you could hit rice and then however many grams of the rice that you just had. But I feel like it just ends up being quicker to write those macro values. But that's up to you. And then either way, you're still killing it because you're counting your calories and beating everybody who isn't, at least in terms of actually making your diet more effective, or potentially more effective. I mean, I could count all my calories today and still totally blow over my limit. And then what was the point of counting them in the first place? So it's kind of, you got to know what you're doing and do the right thing kind of situation as well. But I'm going to sit here, finish this, and then we can head in the car and head over to do some chest and maybe a touch of shoulders, just a little bit. All right, some time has passed since that pre-workout meal was eaten. Now, I'd say about 45 minutes or not an hour for sure, but there's a good chunk of time spent in a classic living room nap, half playing on my phone, half kind of sleeping on a pillow. But all that's to say is that full meal of about, I think, a cup-ish. There's about 145 grams of that instant rice with the half pound of turkey. That has done me good. Feeling reasonably energized. And just kind of, well, I mean, apart from feeling the caffeine from the pre-workout start kicking in, there isn't really like a magic feeling of being well rested and well hydrated. Like, it's not necessarily that you feel incredible. It's more so that you just don't feel bad, right? And that's, I'd say, honestly, more important. You know, just waking up feeling fresh, ready to go to the gym. You feel basically, or you have like sort of a basic sense of just contentness with just, I mean, how you physically feel all over. I really like it. You know, I really think that's kind of fucking important. So if you stayed up too late, you're going to be tired. If you didn't eat enough food, you're going to be hungry. If you didn't drink enough water, odds are you're probably going to have a headache and you're just going to feel just a little bit groggy or all over the place because you're dehydrated. You know, so as long as those three things are in order, which for me so far today, they definitely are, there's no reason why I shouldn't have an awesome chest day. And apart from, well, yeah, I mean, there's really nothing to fucking stop me. So plan is some kind of incline press, maybe Smith machine. I've been telling myself I would do Smith machine the last few, and then I end up doing barbell. So I think I might make today's chest day a Smith starter, and then go from there. Probably cable-based stuff for any kind of squeezing isolation, and I'm really going to be trying to keep my shoulders back. That's one of my fucking most important key points that I'm trying to work on form-wise with chest, is not pressing here, but pulling back. And I do feel more chest that way, right? It is it's a little tricky to actually implement that, especially if you're used to benching like almost a certain way for a while, right? I mean, bad habits can kind of get built up, but that's what I'm fighting against. And it's not like I haven't been having good chest days, but I want to make sure that I have better chest days as I get as I get more developed. And that's kind of how it's supposed to be anyway. If you do something for 3 years, you should be better at it than you were a year ago. The lifting somehow gets it's in its own league when it comes to progress, because even working out at all is already a W. If somebody goes to the gym on the regular, even just 4 times a week, you know, perpetually, that's good, right? That's definitely goal achieving, depending on the guy. But if you want to be on that side of, you know, heavier sets, making real gains, really locking into it in a, you know, bodybuilding, just general lifting, powerlifting, whatever, then you need more than that, right? Gains over time, and as you get more developed, will demand more from your training if you want to keep making them. It's not going to demand as much to just stay whatever level you're at. You know, if you ever played Pokemon Go, which I'm sure we all used to, right? Every time you try to reach a new level, and this is anything game-wise, right? I think it's a good analogy to gamify this kind of stuff. But it takes you 10 XP to get to level 2 from level 1. To get to level 2, or to get to level 3, now it's going to take you 15 XP. Okay, it's took a little more work to get to that 225 single instead of the 185, but still pretty easy. You know, I can do this. I can keep this up for a while. You know, I can start repping 225 in a couple months for sure. But the more developed you get as a lifter, the more difficult it's going to be to actually stimulate whatever muscle you're hitting from your workouts. Plus, the recovery process has to match so that you can actually keep pushing into new territory, right? So it's kind of a situation where you really can't let your foot off the gas. That's why I like the routine of the bulking up and the dieting down, you know, because it's something to be argued. Like, what is better? Steadily, slowly gaining weight by eating at maintenance, or just barely over maintenance to the point where you gain, you know, muscle slowly over time? I think for the beginner, that's an absolutely perfect approach. There's no need to do a crazy bulk if you've only been working out for 3 months, or to do a crazy cut if you've only been working out for 3 months. So I would say The beginner should hit his protein goals and then work on, just working up. More training, more sets, more experience, learn about macros a little bit, ease into it, get your cardio. All of those basics are going to do you a million times better than trying to do a dirty bulk at, 6 months into working out. But as time progresses and you reach a real weight plateau where, 200 pounds is getting kind of tricky to get heavier, then I do think dedicated weight gaining and then body fat losing phases have a place. So it's also easy for me because then no matter when it is during the year, I've always got a specific goal that I'm aiming towards and working towards on the daily. Main gaining can get a little ambiguous because it's such a slower process. Now, if you're happy with main gaining results and you're getting main gaining results, keep it up. Don't listen to me. Why would I tell you to stop? What you're doing is working. But if it's slowed down enough, then you might have to take an extra step and add a little bit of extra complexity and start tracking your calories, get a food scale in the kitchen, download like a macro tracker app. Even you don't have to look up, you don't have to be that crazy about it. Like, just look up a video like how to eat as a bodybuilder, best macros for bulking. There's a million basic framework videos out there where, if you spend an hour or two, start watching a couple of them, you can get the gist. And then if you apply whatever you can learn from those videos to your actual lifting life, see what works, see what doesn't work, see what you can stick to, then that's where the real magic is, right? Everybody can say, like, dude, you just need to eat more food. It's that simple. Or, dude, you're not losing body fat as fast as you wanted. Well, clearly you're eating too much. Like, it's easy to say that, but that's not a tip. That's not a piece of advice. That's sort of like you're just stating a fact at that point, right? That's like somebody crashed their car and you told them, dude, you probably shouldn't have done that. It's like, that could be true, but you're also not really giving any constructive criticism at all. So instead of just saying like, oh, you need to eat more food, it's more so if you can learn about like specific meals and what kind of carbs it is that are or what kind of foods and meals are easy for you to eat more of, right? Let's say somebody has no problem absolutely destroying like 6 bowls of cream of wheat with blueberries and like brown sugar throughout every fucking day, and like they got no problem digesting, it feels awesome, then fuck, man, that's what that guy's got to do. But that's not something which anyone can tell you. That's kind of something that you have to figure out, which isn't really that's not an awesome piece of advice either, but that kind of is just the nature of the training, because it's very individual. Working out or when it comes to different kind of sports or hobbies, like with golf, or I always think of golf because my brother, it's a good analogy for me to think about, but it's a bit more streamlined, right? Everybody should swing it similarly, follow the same kind of techniques. And with the working out, like the way that you do your sets, that's something which basic tips are going to be good to hear. But the muscle building side of things, when it comes to what kind of foods you eat and how you have to balance working at your diet with your regular life, that's all you, man. You're the only one who knows how to adjust that, and you're the only one who's going to be able to make yourself stick to it. As much as we see some videos where guys are like, all right, we're doing this transformation with my client, we're going to make it a 3-month thing, and like the coach is like forcing the guy and like constantly calling him and checking in. Unless you're doing something like that, nobody's holding you accountable to this kind of stuff. So it really is just putting your guts out on the table. Like, I want to do this. I'm sticking to it so I can do this. And here's my last 1 month of progress proving that I'm on track to doing what I want to do. And that part is probably the most important. Because if you look back at your last month and it's not really looking exactly like it's reflecting the things you're saying that you're doing, then something's got to change. And a month is not that that's not that short of a time period, right? In a month, if you're really bulking up, you should see the scale change. If you're really trying to trim down, you should see the scale change. If you're like directly working at progressive overload, maybe a little more power lifter, power builder-ish, then you should see some minor strength gains depending on whatever you're doing. Like 1 month is not negligible. So if you look back at this last month, or like where you were a month ago versus right this exact moment, and let's say you're trying to bulk up, but you're still that same 175, I hate to tell you, right? Don't shoot the messenger here, but obviously you're not bulking. And that's not a criticism. It's simply something where you've got to look at that objectively and say, okay, I got to change something up here. But enough generalized talk. Let's just start this chest workout. I know I'm gonna have more to say on the way back. Plus, there's still 2 more meals left, and plus like a little bowl of vitamins. So how about we just jump to that first set of probably incline Smith machine, potentially incline barbell. I guess we'll just find out. I'm warm. I've finished my cable warm up, which really just consists of doing some single arm pushdowns, some rows, some rotator cuff rotations, and then some bent over single arm cable chest press. And no crazy weight, like not real working sets, but I kind of go through that circuit a couple times, or actually maybe like 8 times, just like 5 reps each or 3 reps each or something, gradually increasing weight because I want to make sure everything feels good. If I don't warm up my shoulders with like a little bit of front raises and rotator cuff stuff and even some back sort of rowing movements, all this pressure, it's not going straight into my pecs. A lot of it's being like translated as internal force into my fucking shoulders, right? Into my rotator cuffs specifically. I mean, talking bones here, cartilage, things you wouldn't want to mess up. So having a longer, extensive warm up for chest has done me, well, the good that has done me comes in the lack of negatives, right? I can't remember the last time I had a bum shoulder because I had like a crunchy rep. And I think that warm up has a lot to do with it. But then I came over here, 1 plate, 2 plate, 1 rep at 3 plates, and I could probably go a little bit heavier, but this will be a very comfortable working weight where, I mean, I could see maybe 15. I don't know. It's going to be slower. Last chest day, I started with incline barbell, and I was doing a real regular kind of brutish working set. This is going to be a bit slower, more controlled negative, very mindful reps, as it were. So even though physically I could maybe get 15 reps if I were busting them out, doing them slower will make them more difficult, more tedious. Or not tedious, more strenuous. So I'll get less reps, but each rep will be, I don't want to purely say a higher quality, but more damaging, right? I mean, sure, you could curl a 30-pound dumbbell 40 times, or you do it 10 times really slow with a really hard squeeze. And as long as you went to failure in both ways, I think those are both good sets. So even though this will be a little bit slower, later on, I might do some faster kind of pump-based work. We'll have to see. But let's make this one happen. Yeah. 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 That was good. 1 more minimum. Actually, let's just raise this right now. So I've got no need to remove all the plates. I can just flatten this thing out and do a quick little deadlift. Yeah. 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 I'm not done. I'll make that a little rest pause. So I only got 6. Would not have got another one. But if I take 20 seconds, I'm not, this is only one set, but I'm coming back for a vengeance. This is like this set is like 2 rounds. It's still the same fight. But I totally got 4 more. Okay. I guess not. That was good though. That might be enough. That's probably enough heavy pressing. Let's move on to something else. It's been a while since I've done some converging cable chest press. So this set I'll make a little heavier, but the next one I'm gonna drop the weight by like 20 pounds or so. That's 70 each. 80 is the stack. I don't think going that heavy will do me much good. I'll start using my front delts and stuff. But same approach with the Smith. This is gonna be pretty controlled. And before I actually start, this is like my little, not even a mental cue, a physical cue. Suck my shoulder blades back together. So I got no choice but to have my shoulders in a more chest biased position. Because this, compared to this, is a drastic lack of stretch in the chest and increase in front delt utilization. Like I was saying in the car, I'm trying to put a lot of emphasis on that. But this will be a good heavy one. Didn't stick the pin in all the way. Okay. Oh. That was good, but that was too heavy. Let's drop it to a 50 and do a, well, actually just the same shit. Yeah. 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 Oh, yeah, okay. Next will be some pump-based flies. But I'm really trying to make sure I squeeze as hard as humanly fucking possible at the top of each of these reps. And in the beginning, when I'm strong, whatever, not that hard. Obviously, if you're on a pec deck, to hold it for a second on rep number 3, not the hardest thing in the world. It gets a bit trickier the weaker you get, because it's almost like you're, I mean, really hitting failure. You're trying to send signals, and those signals aren't being received, because like you're saying push, 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 but you're just not fucking moving. So I usually see that as a cue for people to say, oh, well, it's getting really hard. I can't really move it. And I'm not trying to like make light of that. Like, it is hard. Like, absolute serious failure. That's not an easy thing to do. So I'm not trying to say like, oh, it's so easy. Why can't you do it? But that is something which is a challenge on a step-by-step basis for your training that you should try to step up to. So it's not necessarily a battle of trying to go the hardest out of everybody in the room. But if you can do a set as hard as you can, and you actually aren't lying to yourself, that's badass. And the more you do that, that level of intensity will rise, right? Because you're going to get used to it. Somebody who can run 3 miles, he's not going to have a problem jumping to 4 miles. Somebody who can only run 1, he's got to take those steps first to get there. So that's half the benefit of coming to the gym as a beginner, is every lift is just more and more experience. And if you haven't lifted for more than like a couple of years, each lift can be pretty groundbreaking. You know, I mean, if you only lift twice, that second lift, you just doubled your lifting experience, right? It's like the older you get, your years actually feel like they add up less kind of situation. But no more chatting. You distracted me. Let me do this shit. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right, so here's my finisher plan. Regular pec deck, followed by decline flies with the cables. So this is heavy, burnout, get some blood in the area, whatever. I really want to make that the hard part of the set. This is the pre-exhauster. Like, I wanted to be good reps, but failure is really going to happen over here with a deep, well, I guess a deep squeeze, or no, what am I saying? Deep stretch and a crazy squeeze. Like I'm doing a fucking Kevin Levrone, most muscular right there at the bottom of every rep. But let's do a heavy set here, or a heavy pre-exhaust. Squeeze the shit out of it and then go pose down, which I'm getting excited for. If I can go back to, yeah, the thin gray line. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Ooh. All right. Let's find some ear space. Guess I ended up actually lying about having some shoulders during this chest workout, but that is okay. Frankly, I need to get out of a shoulder zone. They're freaking too big. And I don't mean too big like in the scheme of infinity, but relative to my arms and my chest, they're too big in proportion. So that's what I mean. Too big. Honestly, that thought process shouldn't even go through my mind. But too big relatively, that's something to consider. A lot of people have overdeveloped, let's just say, upper portions of their body, and their lower portion doesn't exactly match, right? That's exactly what I'm talking about, that proportionality, something that maybe they need to take action and start to adjust. But those people know who they are. And I know that's not you. You do crazy ass sets of leg press and squat on the fucking regular. But let's run through some little chest poses here. Oh. Stomach vein inbound. That gets me excited. But let's hit a couple. Oh, goodness. Oh, my goodness. So this is cool. Not even doing a pose, just sitting here with my hands on my hips. I'm already kind of getting a little more of that sort of classic Dorito-ish look, which is not because my upper body is now suddenly beefing up extra. It's more so my stomach and my midsection itself is actually getting thinner, right? I mean, it's a classic look at your abs and squeeze this level of fat here, which of course, once that gets away, you'll start to see more like abdominal separation. But same thing, if not fucking thicker for me on the love handles. Like I got way thicker of a chunk of stuff to grab over here. So as that portion gets leaner and starts to reveal all this kind of fancy pants stuff on the sides, it'll make my shoulders look bigger, right? And my lat spread look wider. It really is a proportionality battle. I mean, that's why if you tune into any of the real bodybuilding, Keone, dude, these guys are lighter than me, but they look like, well, not even look like, they are insanely developed beefcake open bodybuilders because of their proportionality. They're closing down. And I did put my stuff away, right? Apart from the occasional plate on a leg press, you gotta unrack your stuff, man. I mean, I've seen 2.5 plates left on a squat rack. Oh, you guys are nuts. But not you, of course. I mean people who leave that shit out. But let's get in the car, head back home and eat something. All right, some substantial time has passed. And it feels much later than it should right now. I thought daylight savings times was done. I thought that was kind of over with, but whatever. Whatever. So post-workout meal, kind of let's just say an egg-heavy fried rice. So when I microwave that one sort of big pack of like the Uncle Ben's, it's not just one serving. That was like a big one. It's got 3.5 servings, right? So I just had a little Tupperware, almost a little bit of a meal prep in a way, which is kind of what I'm getting into. The more deep I get into a dieting phase, the more I have to actually kind of sort of refine the process to the point where I'm bulking up now. I mean, I'll have a huge Tupperware just full of white rice ready. So whenever I, want to do a chicken or a steak or eggs, I can just throw the rice in from the fridge, already cooked. But this one in particular, I already wrote down all the macros before I tracked them. 30 grams of fat. So 20 of those are from 4 egg yolks. So that's 4 whole eggs, 10 egg whites, which usually I'd recommend just get get cartoned eggs whites so you don't have to throw away the yolks. I just ran out, so I just used the whites instead and separated them. You just save yourself a chore. Plus, it's going to be way more cost effective to get the actual whites instead of separating them. And you're not wasting the yolks too. The other 10 is coming from 5 grams of fat from the rice because it's flavored. It kind of has some extra oils added to it. Another reason why I usually like just a big red box of the plain minute rice. A little more simple, just straight carbs, nothing else. And then 5 is from the olive oil cooked in the pan, right? You can't let any of this shit fucking slide. 5 grams of olive oil here and there every time you're cooking something. Let's say you make a steak, you really get the pan kind of greased up. That could be 300 calories that you just went completely unaccounted for. And then suddenly you're telling yourself, dude, I'm tracking all my shit. Like I'm at 2,500. Like you could do everything. Track your calories, weigh shit on the scale, eat in certain times of the day. But if you're not like completely anal about every calorie, you can kind of screw yourself. And I'm not saying you have to do that, like in general. But if you want steady fat loss results, if you want steady weight gain results, then you do have to fucking make sure every calorie is accounted for. Right? If you've ever run into the accounting department at some kind of fucking business, yeah, I'd imagine they don't want any fucking cent being just, let slip away, right? They got to find where all this stuff is going, or else this whole system isn't going to really work. But sauce wise, was about 3 servings of kind of like sesame teriyaki ish um, Sweet Baby Ray's. No sugar added. So that does not mean 0 calorie, right? Every 17 grams of that sauce, that kind of flavoring, that's 2 grams of carbs. So a little bit less noticeable than the fats. But, I put that on the scale, added the amount that I wanted, put it back on the scale, right? Saw the difference. And then that tells me, okay, this has an extra 10 grams of carbs. So this whole thing adds up to 60 grams of protein, 65 grams of carbs, and then 30 grams of fats. And then this is just a liter of water with a 0 sugar kind of electrolyte packet. So this whole thing is a post-workout meal, adds up to 770 calories. Right now, remember, my goal for the day, actually, let me go back, I kind of forget, is about 2,700. So if I'm only eating 4 times, then this is actually a big meal. Technically, it's too big, right? 770 times 4, that's not 2,630, right? That's like 3,000 something. So this is one of the benefits of saving some meals and some calories for later in the day, because I'm going to have no problem going to bed and staying under my calorie limit, because I get this meal and then another pretty decently sized chunk in like 2 hours. So I can go to bed with a full stomach, but still hit, or I guess didn't go over what my calorie goal was, which is really half of it. I mean, anytime, and this is kind of like the prerequisite, the prerequisite for this situation is you do already have to be tracking your calories. But if you are, and if you're that kind of guy, if you've been doing that for a little while, then do not underestimate the power of hunger when you're getting ready to go to bed. Because if let's say it's 8 o'clock, I kind of went crazy today. Like maybe I stopped at the vending machine. Maybe I was like, screw it, I'm gonna get some McDonald's on the way home. It'll count, and I can count that in my macros. Like it's not gonna throw off my fat loss goals. But 8 o'clock at night, and I already hit my limit. I'm already at 2,700 calories. I got to make it until I go to sleep without eating anything else if I wanted to stick to my goal and I didn't want to go over. And that's where I think most, or at least the most problematic situations are going to rise. Because if it's 9 o'clock, if it's 10 o'clock, you're staying up kind of late, let's say it's 1 o'clock before you really go to bed, really, you're going to expect me to believe that you're going to go 5 hours without eating anything? It's kind of a little mental toughness kind of situation. But it's not something you have to do. So that's where having a more even and like planned calorie intake schedule for the whole day can make it a lot easier on yourself. Because, I mean, when it comes to the dieting, it's so classic to think about it like you're fucking torturing yourself. It's like, oh, I mean, regular convention would say if you're a bodybuilder dieting, chicken, rice, broccoli, 8 times a day, or 3 times a day, or whatever else times a day, nothing else. And that already throws people off, like just kind of non-initiated lifters. Plus, now, I mean, when we think of fat loss or like dieting down or limiting your calorie restrictions, that doesn't come off as like, okay, I have a specific goal and this is what I have to do to achieve it. It really comes off as like, oh, you're not eating even though you're hungry? You're starving yourself? What are you doing? And I'm not saying for lifters, we get it. We understand the point of a bulking diet and a fat loss kind of diet. But, to the general public, that's not what they see. They see, oh, dude, you're fucking torturing yourself by not, just eat, bro. What are you doing, man? Just eat. And then the guy is, well, let's just say out of shape, right? So it's it's sort of a situation where you have certain thresholds that you want to hit, right? If you're bulking up, you have to eat this much at least, and that number is going to differ. It's going to be different for everybody. But if you're not gaining weight, then it sucks to say, but it really is as simple as you're probably not eating enough food. Now, how you go about that could be very complicated. You know, add a little bit here, maybe try to add a meal, maybe have a real thick spread of like cream cheese with salami on a bagel for breakfast. You know, go from like a 300 calorie, piece of toast to like 1,000 calorie little like protein blasted whatever. Like there's all sorts of ways to go about it. But dieting wise, you've really got one factor which is going to make or break it. And that's if you're in a calorie deficit. So every day, your body's going to run through 10 gallons of gas, right? Now, this is kind of a car analogy, but I'll explain it. So 10 gallons of gas, right? That's what you're running on. But let's say you're also a hybrid car. So you've got your 10 gallons of gas, but you also have a reserve energy cell right here, right? This is your body fat. So if you're eating a ton of food, that energy cell is fully charged, right? You got your fat on. You just finished a bulk. So if you want to start eating into that, then you're going to run through your gas first, right? That's all the food that you're regularly eating, your primary fuel source. So you have to eat less than those 10 gallons worth. So let's say, food wise, you eat 9 gallons, right? So if you're, well, you get the gist, right? Less energy than you're going to burn throughout the whole day. So your body still needs that extra energy. It's still got to run itself. Where's it going to go? It's got no food. So it's either going to tell your brain, okay, go eat something right now. Or you can tough out that feeling and it's going to say, shit, man, there's no more food around. Let's burn into my internal energy reserves. That's the whole fucking point. So for me to limit myself to these 2,700-ish calories, my body is going to want to burn through, I don't know, maybe 3,000, 3,100 or so for the whole day. So it's going to burn those extra 400 from internal energy stores. And since I'm not full of fucking carbs right now, on like an 800 carb a day kind of bulking diet, where's it going to pull that energy from? Right? Fat burning, lipolysis. It's going to gradually suck out some, all the stored oils that are, separating my chest striations from my skin. And it's going to say, let's use some of this for fuel. Let's burn off this fuel because we got to burn something and you got to stay alive. So if you can't stay under that limit somehow, then that's really your problem. So anybody that's not losing body fat, typically that's the case. Now, it's not purely diet. Increasing your cardio, increasing your activity level on a day-by-day basis of the same shit too, it's kind of going to work in reverse, right? If I want a bigger calorie deficit, I can either eat less food or be more active, right? So this is let's say this is my maintenance calories. Like if I eat this much, I will be, or no. This is how much energy I burn per day, right? Let's say the table is 0. This much is being burned every day. If I eat this much, nothing's going to happen, right? Everything's going to be fine. I'm just going to stay the same fucking weight. If you're main gaining, you may gain weight, muscle wise very slowly, which is totally legit if you are doing that. But if you're trying to get leaner and you're eating as much food as you are burning, or potentially more food than you're burning, then right, you're kind of screwing yourself. So that's where breaking it down size by size into understanding like, okay, I don't need to just purely eat salads and, drink lemon juice and onions and apple cider vinegar. That's probably BS. What's the real answer to this fucking problem? And frankly, I think the counting your macros trick is 90% of it. Now now I'm just talking. I'll eat this after. But, I've said like, if I ate 2,700 calories of pure sweets, like let's say I had a protein shake every meal, 3 donuts, or in whatever, right? Classic kind of just junk food. I would still be in a calorie surplus, or no, in a calorie deficit. But there's a reason why I'm not doing that. It's just not conducive to real gains. That's an extreme situation just to amplify the importance of the calorie deficit, right? That would not fill me up at all. If I eat 2,700 calories of treats, 30 minutes later, after I eat any of them, I'm going to be hungry again because it's just going to throw my blood sugar all over the place. My energy levels are going to be all over the place. It really is easier on your whole system and easier to maintain like a basic dieting plan when you're eating more basic foods like this. That's something that I've only just recently kind of gotten the real understanding of. And with all this stuff, you're hearing me say macros in every fucking workout video. It's there's a difference between hearing it, kind of getting it, and actually doing it and getting your firsthand kind of experience, right? Anybody could tell you what it's like to drive a race car. They could say, yeah, it's pretty fast, it's pretty loud, it's pretty freaky, whatever. And you could hear that and think, okay, yeah, probably is. I can imagine. But actually being in there, dude, you got to feel fucking crazy. It's a very different level of understanding. So that's why I'm probably not going to stop talking about macro tracking until the last one of these workout videos goes up. I'm talking, well, let's just say I'm talking quite a while away. But as long as I've been doing it like that, I've never had a problem gaining weight or losing weight and getting leaner. And I'm not just talking about like enhanced either. I mean, even back when I was a pretty lean 185 in high school, right? The calorie tracking still holds up. There's no way to get around it, I say. Unless you start taking Ozempic, which even then, it's still just a math of calories in, calories out. That just like totally crashes your metabolism's, rate. So you just end up eating less food. But, even though it's like a magic solution or whatever, it's still just eating less food than energy that you're burning. So this, on a more subjective note, getting back to this meal specifically, for 770 calories, this is going to be pretty filling. Like, frankly, I might even have maybe more of a treat-based meal for the last one before bed, because this one's going to fill me up. Because this is not particularly dense, like 700 calories of chocolate. I can probably hold it in one hand, like right here, just like a handful of like Hershey Kisses or something. But this is like an actual big kind of bowl. So one more note about the dieting. You want to eat foods that do make you feel full. Because I don't want to have to come back to the kitchen or start scrounging around the cupboards looking for a little snack 30 minutes after I just ate a meal. Right? What that would tell me is, okay, I didn't really have a good meal. I didn't have a meal that really made me feel full, So that's a lot of what I'm looking at. Low calories, filling, and making me feel full and kind of as though I've like satiated my hunger for at least a little while afterward. So I don't have to come back and I can maintain whatever my rate of calorie consumption goal for that whole day ends up being. But I'm going to camp out here for a little while. I'll probably just jumpstart the editing for this in a minute. So, well, we'll see. Not that it matters, but I'm going to camp out here and play on my phone for like 30 minutes. Then we can cut to whatever the last meal of day 29. 4 weeks deep into the dieting phase. Oh, we get it. Let's cut to the last meal. All right, some time has passed. 2 of those little beefsteaks were also eaten. So that's going to account for another 8 grams of protein and 8 grams of protein and 6 grams of fats. And then with this finisher meal of kind of just an exact repeat of breakfast, the first meal, except only 1 packet of oatmeal, finishes my day as such. There we go. Right, that shouldn't be too overexposed or anything, but 250 grams of carbs, 64 of fats, and then 245 of protein. Plus I just drank a cup of milk straight out of the carton. And an easy way to measure that, put the carton onto a scale, zero it out, drink enough, put it back until it reads 240. Right, 240 milliliters, 240 grams, 1 cup. But a little bit of a theme, right? A little bit of patterns here. Simple carb, some kind of protein source, a little electrolyte drink, and then I get a little couple of vitamins. I'm talking magnesium, I'm talking multivitamin, I'm talking some carnitine, just kind of basic shit. But I mean, there's not really much exciting about the dieting side of things, right? It's I'd say this is when I'm really eating less for my eyes and more so for really how I'm going to end up feeling over the course of however many hours before the next meal. Because even though the eating part, that's what we think about. That's the part where you're thinking about the food, whatever. But that's maybe 10% of your day. The other 90% is what I'm kind of trying to focus on because I want to make that 10% of eating where you're not going to be fiending for food. You have it right there in front of you. I want to make that extend as long as possible. So eating simpler carbs, like more complex carbs that don't just immediately spike my blood sugar and then I have an insulin crash and it comes back down and it's all bouncing around. I got different energy levels. It just doesn't work. Right? It sucks really. So eating more plain foods like this, rices, potatoes, oatmeals, cream of wheat, those things make it so much easier to maintain steady energy levels, not have like a sugar crash or anything else, and not only steady energy levels, but just steady like baseline hunger levels. The last thing I'd want to do is have like 100 calories worth of cinnamon toast crunch in the morning, which is not because I think that's complete poison for your body, but because it's going to totally spike my blood sugar. It's going to crash it. And then I'm going to feel like I have to recompensate with more food. And it's just like kind of a never ending spiral. So eating foods like this, it's just so much easier. No, it's not as exciting. I mean, I literally just had this exact meal, maybe 12 or something hours ago. Not the coolest thing in the world. And really part of that's on me. I've got a bunch of steaks in the freezer, but they're frozen. And I forgot to, thaw them out. Usually I wouldn't go more than 50 grams of protein in the day with a shake. And I mean, I think it's okay. Don't feel bad if for your appetite level, you can only eat like half your protein in real food and the other half you're supplementing with protein shakes. But you're going to benefit if you can get 90% of that protein from regular turkeys, chickens, fish, ground beef, steak, whatever. It's just going to work a little bit better. Plus, all the processes that I have to go through for the dairy, it really does kind of throw you off, or at least eh, maybe not as much for me. Like I feel fine. I mean, even if I had only protein shakes all day, it wouldn't make me feel like sick or anything. But I can tell with more of the plain, real kind of red meats, like basic, classic protein sources, everything just kind of feels like it's working a little better. And maybe that's subjective. Maybe I'm just falling for the carnivore propaganda, but a lot more macronutrients or a lot more micronutrient dense in especially the red meat. Plus you're getting all those actual animal fats. All the seed oil stuff is I wouldn't say freaking me out, but I'm definitely. I mean, let's just say I got some beef tallow in the fridge, right? Not just like olive oil or whatever else. But one thing I almost forgot to mention: there's 2 capsules of fish oil in here. That's nothing. That's one more thing that you can't just forget about because that's 3 grams of fat, which I didn't even track. So 3 grams of fat there. So really, I finished the day with 67 grams of fat, not 64. And again, I mean, I know it's anal. I know it's being crazy OCD, but making sure you get every little detail about all this stuff, I promise it'll add up. And once you get used to it, then it's no longer like a crazy chore. It just kind of feels more normal, right? I mean, it's like if you throw somebody in a real fancy pants kitchen and you have them sit there wiping every fork perfectly mirror finish kind of clean. At first, guys, you can say, "Oh, what the fuck, man? What's the point of all this?" Well, but it kind of, translates into sort of greater lessons. But that's just me thinking about, is that the bear? Is that the brother and the bear, I think? But either way, the longer that you can do this kind of stuff, like if you start tracking your calories for a few weeks, don't even try to eat a specific amount, just try to track them. I promise after those 2 weeks, it's going to feel so much easier to be able to keep doing it because it's not rocket science, but it is one extra step in your day. So that's not where I would expect anybody to hear me say, you should start tracking your macros. You should start doing cardio. I wouldn't expect anybody to say, okay, I think that's a good idea. I'm going to do that 100% right now off the rip. It's a little bit too much. Any changes that are going to be this kind of long term, I think you want to ease into it a little, or at least don't feel like you have to be perfect from the get go. Because nobody is. That's not the point of doing anything. And if that's your limit, if that's like, okay, if I can't be perfect, I don't want to do it at all, then that's just fucking bullshit. It's I think that's how a lot of people feel about working out. That's how a lot of people feel about the dieting. I mean, New Year's kind of training. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. Well, this part isn't really working out. I forgot to count my. Oh, screw it. Whatever. Right? I mean, come on. That's not how we learn about shit. But all that's to say, me going through the process of, you know, looking at the nutrient label on the oatmeal or on these protein shakes or weighing out all this chicken and microwaving the rice and putting it on the food scale, that is what's making me get leaner, right? The training is whatever. Honestly, the training is kind of basic right now just because I'm not growing. I'm not growing any new muscle. All I'm doing is maintaining the muscle I already have built and trying to get rid of this fat layer that's separating, well, all my veins and striations and everything else. So I, the diet is really 100% of it. If I just started letting myself eat whatever I wanted, there'd be no more fat loss. There'd be no more pound a week getting leaner. It would just be me staying the same old guy like I was before. And that's not what my goal is. And it's easy for me to say that because I know the exact steps for me to take with all these calories and everything else to make it easier on myself to actually go through the process of getting leaner. So that's where, I'm kind of spoiled with the have dones versus the have nots because I've done this enough with the dieting, I think like 5 or so times over the course of like, 3 month, 4 month kind of intervals where I've gotten pretty substantial fat loss. So there's no doubt in my mind about the fact that what I'm doing is working. So since I believe it, and not even believe it, I just know that that's what it takes to get those results, then it's not even a question about doing it. Like if I finish this meal and I go lay down in bed and I'm like, okay, could DoorDash. There's nothing in the freezer, but maybe I could DoorDash a Ben and Jerry's. Who would know? You guys wouldn't know. Nobody's watching me. That could be just a 1,200 calorie treat right there. I am kind of hungry, dude. Guys, come on. I think we get the gist there. But finishing off the day with what is it? 2,587 calories. That's all right. That is okay. I think that's about where I want to stick to, at least for a little bit. If I feel like that's not enough calories and I need to step it up just a touch, then I'll bounce it up maybe 100, 200 or so. But this is the complete opposite situation as when it comes to bulking up. Because if I'm a little bit under my calorie goal for the day, because I'm dieting down, that is totally fucking fine. Now, if I go over, that's where I'm asking for trouble. That's where I'm asking for, putting myself steps and steps behind. Because if you overeat, depending on how severe you overate, I mean, that could wreck a full week of dieting. I mean, not even I could. I stuck to my deficit this whole last week, these whole 4 weeks. I could probably completely undo that in about 3 days. I could undo a complete month of good dieting in 3 days of just eating in gargantuan amount of food. But it wouldn't feel that crazy because like right now I'm in a flat depleted state. So I mean, if I keep eating sweets and ice cream and like all sorts of whatever, I would kind of just suck it all in and absorb it because my body's like, dude, you gotta eat something, right? We want you back at like your full, strongest state. So you really can't let yourself go for that long, right? If you're locked into a specific 3 month dieting phase, you want to do like I don't know, is there a classic name for like a 90? If you want to do like a 90 hard, is that something? Well, whatever. If you wanted to lose 15 pounds over the next 3 months, or whatever amount of pounds, like you got a specific number in mind, you know what kind of calories you're going to stick to, then the plan's right there. It's like your teacher gave you your homework. You didn't do it. There is no excuse. It's simply didn't feel like putting that work in. This is my end result. Give me an F. And that's not for anyone else to say to you. I'm talking about you to you. Inner monologue. I said I was going to lock in this year. Ooh. Well, there's always next year. Right? And the same guy who says that is going to say the same thing the year after that, and after that, and after that, and after that. And then it's eventually it's going to be too late. This will be my last note before we move on. You do have some prime time real estate when it comes to working out when you're a bit younger. And I'm not talking about just like teenage years. Obviously, that's fucking true. But even 20s, your metabolism is going to start slowing down. So this is my last tip before we can get out of here. I'll finish this and go to bed. But if you're a little bit older, if you're talking 30 plus, and guys will say like nothing works. I just can't seem to get rid of this stubborn body fat. That's not total BS, because as you get older, your metabolism is going to start to slow down. That's not a myth. That's just legit. Like, that's the fact of the matter. So for anybody who's, they can get into a deficit fine, but they notice some pretty serious fat loss plateaus, that's where I would prioritize increasing activity level to try to get your metabolism moving up a bit higher, right? So let's say somebody who's actually tracking their macros, which I hate to say is probably a small percentage of you guys, but not forever. I know you're all about to get into it. But let's say you're a little older guy, you've been tracking everything like well, and you're not lying about it, but you're plateaued, and you don't want to break into like 1,800 calories. You're fucking starving yourself. You got to run off of something. So that's where more cardio, right, making sure you got consistent training along with it, is going to be beneficial, just because you're going to end up burning more fuel. So it just makes you a little bit more of a kind of a hotter engine per se, and it should be a little bit easier to break through something like that. But then, of course, I'm not saying that's easy. Now you got to add, 15 minutes, 30 minutes of cardio at least reasonably frequently throughout the week. Like, that's not zero effort. But I do think that's a good step. Now, of course, I'm not a bodybuilding coach. I don't have like an experienced clientele of guys where I gave them these specific tips. But the basics are going to apply to everybody. Eat enough to grow. Don't eat too much to keep getting leaner. Constant cardio and reasonably frequent, at least like 5 times a week lifts, will put you in a much better state to make whatever gains are that you want to make. But I'm going to sit here, enjoy all this, pass out, and then I've got morning cardio. So I hope I don't have a dream about it. Sometimes I have that where I dreamt that I went to the gym, did my cardio, and then drove back home. And then I wake up and I'm like, oh shit. Half of me is like convinced I already did it. And then I have to realize that was just a dream. I still got some shit to do. But until then, I will see you for back, a wide ass back pump tomorrow.